Hi everyone, this is Abel. Welcome back to my channel. Today we have a ton of really interesting books to talk about. We have reading updates, reviews, writing updates. This is going to be great. Let's get ready. But before we start, remember that if you enjoy science fiction and fantasy books, this is the perfect place for you. So if you want to see more videos like this, please consider subscribing, leave a like, share this video. Thank you. The first book we are going to talk about today is Beyond the Mist Line by Lincoln Law. I have to tell you a little bit of trivia about this book. I usually keep my notifications for social media turned off because I wanted to avoid being doom scrolling social the whole day. But I happened to buy a new phone and installing all my new apps. And it so happens that I left notifications on. And for the first time, Instagram actually gave me something useful because, and I didn't even know that this was a thing, this was a feature. It suggests me a profile to follow in a notification on the notification bar on my Android phone with the profile of this author. And I was pretty surprised, first of all, because I wasn't expecting any kind of notification from Instagram, but because of this specific kind of notification. You usually get likes, comments, and all the rest of new subscribers. And I went and checked it out, and I find this beautiful looking cover, which is really amazing. It's really beautiful with an amazing typography, and you know how much of a graphic junkie I am. And I went and I read the description and I was hooked immediately. And it says that this is kind of a mix between Mistborn and Attack on Titan. Yeah, I'm sold just because of that. And it says that we have this young protagonist, which is a liner, because in this world you have to traverse the forest by using zip lines. And they go scavenging metals that give those liners special abilities, kind of elemental powers. Then there's a rebellion. The liners revolt against the government or the royal family, let's say. But the strange thing that we have here is the internal conflict, because the protagonist is actually quite fond of the royal family. She has no problem with them. So she's now considered part of the rebellion. She's considered dead. There's some kind of incident at the beginning of the story. So she has this internal conflict because she doesn't know if she has to be still loyal to this group of liners that are actually rebelling, or if she has to try and help the royal family to regain control of this land. It is a really interesting setup. As I told you, I like those influences, especially Mistborn, which is my favorite series by Brandon Sanderson. And I like the idea of this vertical movement, being able to traverse long stretches of land because of those lines. I want to see how it works, actually, and how that having those metals and those special abilities will influence this kind of vertical action in the stories. As far as I can tell, this is also a standalone, which is a pretty unique thing, and also a pretty sweet and short story. I think it clocks around 350 pages, I think. So it's pretty unique. It has an amazing cover. The author is the sweetest man you can imagine. Have the pleasure to interact with him on Instagram. So go give him a follow and pre-order the book. It should be out. Where is out? In May 1st, 2025. I will absolutely read it and let you know what I think about it. You should absolutely check it out for yourself. Parallax by Amber Toro. I don't know if we have a specific release date for this one. This is the sequel to Umbra that I really enjoyed. I've read it around the release date. I read a digital arc for this one, and I really loved it. It's a space opera, multiple POVs, pretty character driven, but with an effective plot too. I think this is a very good gateway if you haven't read anything about sci-fi. If you're a fantasy reader but you want to dip your toes and try to see if science fiction actually works for you, And if you're intimidated, because I know it is reasonable, it's such a broad genre, macro genre, that has so many kind of subgenres and so many kind of voices and plots and stories and settings, it can be quite intimidating. But this one is so approachable on the writing style and so effective on the character development and story that it is actually for me the perfect gateway to try and to give it a try to the broader genre in and of itself. This is a really effective story. There is political intrigue, there is interesting technology, there is interesting character arcs and character motivations and internal struggles. There's found family, there's a list of tropes too on the author's profile. So just give it a try. It was a really interesting read, and I'm pretty sure that book 2 will be even better. So I think there's still a chance to read arcs for book 2, because I have seen posts by the authors about the applications for arc readers. I don't know if you are still in time, but it's worth a try. And check the author, follow the author, and if you haven't read Umbra, do it right now and let me know what you think about it. On April 2, we have the re-release of The Price of Power, an epic fantasy story novel by author Michael Michel, and I hope that his surname is Michel. I'm not sure, but you know, this is the brand. This is my shtick, okay? Destroying name and surnames. This was already out, but it's been re-released with a new cover, which is gorgeous. And I think it is a bit longer. There's new material here, but I haven't read the original version, so the one that I'm going to read will be my first interaction with this author, writing style and story. This is very well beloved. It has impressive reviews, and I think I'm going to love it. Also, he's going to release the sequel to this story on June 11, 2025, so we are going to be able to read a good chunk of this story pretty soon. So let's see what it's about. So we have a fallen prince, then we have an orphan with hero's blood, and then we have a powerful seer that all of them, they have to face sacrifice because there's war and chaos ensuing around the world. And this has been described as a story that is perfect for lovers of epic fantasy, but also of complex characters, morally gray characters. I don't know if this one can be described as grimdark. I don't think. It can be kind of a dark epic fantasy, but it says that destiny will push all of those characters together, and they will have to face their fate, their beliefs, all of their goals, and what they think is right and wrong. This is really interesting when we have this kind of really complex characters and this kind of depth in the exploration of what makes them act, what makes them decide what is good or wrong. And the fact that we have a completed book 1 and completed book 2 that will be released kind of back to back, it makes it even more interesting for me, because you know I'm that bad in following up with series. I'm very good at reading first books in series, and then I'm really bad in continuing and finishing series in a reasonable amount of time. But the fact that they are coming out so soon together, it may be a reason actually pushing me to read 2 of the main books in the series in a reasonable amount of time. Let's see how it goes. If you have read the first book, because it's been published, it's been a hot minute, it's been out for quite a while, let me know what you think about it. On April 20, 2025, we have the release of the 3rd book in the Rebel Galaxy series. It's called Vanguard, but the series is pretty brand new. I think the first book was released in February, so I feel confident in putting this in the upcoming releases because it is so brand new and they're releasing the books so fast. The author are J.N. Cheney and Jasper T. Scott. There's the classic space opera when we have a commander of a colony ship. They're going to colonize a new planet, and establish a new civilization, they have to stop on an intermediate colony on Proxima Centauri. B, that we all know, if you have read any kind of space opera, that's the kind of planet you're going to see, because it's so close relatively to Earth. And when they stop there, the AI awakes the captain and the main crew, and there's bad news from Earth, of course, because we need a horrible conflict for our space opera in order for them to exist. And they say that Earth has been invaded while they were traveling. But the order for the commander and the main crew of the ship is to run away, to don't care about Earth, think about the survival of the colonists. But something else happens, and at a certain point inside the incident is that they have to decide if running is still an option, or if they have to turn back and fight to save Earth. So this is a really interesting conflict, and I like the cover. It's so old style and so colorful, and I like this kind of broad scope space opera with incredibly high stakes. So let's see if it goes. Every book seems to be kind of a chunker. I think they're all around 600 or 800 pages. Authors are really well beloved. If you have seen anything by J.E.N. Chaney, you know that he has dozens and dozens of books and audiobooks. They are all bestsellers. So I think there's a good chance this one will be really good too. If you have read anything about this duo of authors, let me know. And if you're going to check this out, let me know too. In June, we have a new book by A.G. Riddle, author of many techno-thrillers. The small bit of his back catalog that I've read has been incredibly satisfying for me, so I'm pretty sure this one will be good too. The book is Labyrinth, and we have the audiobook coming out in June, I think. I don't think we still have a release date for the ebook and paperbacks, because this is one of those authors that is incredibly popular on Audible too. So, and on all the other platforms where you have audiobooks too. So the central premise of this one is the protagonist is a man that he went through an incredibly bad incident. I think it was an explosion. I think he's not able to walk properly because he has a damage on his on a leg, something really bad on the shoulder, and also that explosion damaged his hearing, and he has this constant noise. I think it's called tinnitus. I don't know how to pronounce it in English. So he has this really damaging and life-altering problem, and at the same time he starts seeing numbers superimposed to his actual vision, which is of course a pretty shocking and frightening experience to have. He does research, he sees that many other people are having the same experience, but everything comes crashing down when he starts losing memories. There are blank spots when he doesn't remember when he's been, what he's been doing, until he wakes up near to a body. And he thinks that now is the right moment to do more researches, to try and understand what's actually going on. It is a really interesting premise because, you know, Riddle is that kind of author, the one that has this high pitch, this kind of high concept, and try to revolve the story around that and to try to give you a compelling story. He has many standalones, which is not that common for science fiction and fantasy, but it's more common for techno thriller, and I like when we have a nice resolution to a deep story inside one book. And the writing style, he always have this really approachable with really fast-paced writing style, so I'm pretty sure it will be really good to have this kind of approach, this kind of narration for this kind of idea. Let's see how it goes. I'll let you know as soon as I read it or listen to it. And if you have read anything by J. Riddle, let me know. I have to discuss about his books with someone, please. Real quick, reading updates. I'm reading Heliotrope by Palmer Pickering. Loving it, of course. This is a really long book. It's around 750 pages, so you will hear me giving you reading updates for many, many weeks ahead. Then I'm reading The Ships of Merrier, which is the second book in the Words of Light and Shadow by Jenny Wirtz, and I can already tell you this is really different. This is really, really different from book one. It is consistent with the tone and the writing style of what we have in The Curse of the Mist, right? But I can already tell you that it is going on its own way, on a pretty separate direction. I didn't expect a second book in a series to go when it is going right now, but it is compelling. And it is engaging as always. I'll tell you more as soon as I finish it. Then I'm reading Molten Flux by Jonathan Wise. Little bite-sized pieces, and I'm enjoying it so much. Also, last night I have read a good chunk of The Black Mantle by Andrew Watson and loving it. I had an inkling that this one was going to be better than the first book, because the novella that was published after the first book was such an improvement on an already really good writing style and book as a whole. But this is incredible. Book 2 is leap and bounds ahead of what we have in the first one and in the novella. This is shaping to be one of my favorite books of 2025, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, if you love desert settings and Egyptian-inspired epic dark fantasy, this is perfect for you. Also, I'm reading Chosen of the Dark Realm by David Comfort, which is an epic fantasy story, really deep too. And just at the beginning of the story, so I cannot tell you much about it. I also have to tell you that I am reading Quicksilver by Kelly Hart, because when I am not a huge reader of romantasy. Actually, I have read just one. I've read Blood and Ash, I think is the title, by Jennifer Armentrout. I DNF'd that series. I have read the first book, but the ending was not for me, okay? And even if everybody says that I should actually keep reading the series because the book 2 is when the series actually finds its footing, so I don't know. Maybe I'll read book 2 in that series too, which is pretty long. This one is not actually working that much for me because I don't understand what they're trying to say. So I know I'm not the target audience, okay? I'm too old. I think this has been written, of course, for young women, and yeah, I have a different mindset, so I'm not supposed to be able to enjoy that kind of book that much. But everybody says that this one is special for the world building and for the plot, that it is above the average romantasy series, and so that has a broader appeal. My problem with this, and I'm around 200 pages in, is that the protagonist is 24 years old, I think, and the love interest is around 1,300 years old, but they both speak and act like middle graders. Well, actually, the banter, because this should be a enemies to lovers series, so they hate each other, they want to backstab each other, they hate their guts, but the humor and the innuendos, because this is a romantic story, I think there will be a point where they will be doing more than kissing, but especially him, everything he speaks to her is to belate her and using flowery ways to tell her that he could bed her whatever he wants and that he's treating her like an animal. And the way she reacts to him is like, actually, like middle graders, actually. The dialogues are really juvenile. And you cannot tell me that 24 years old women are going to enjoy this kind of banter. I cannot believe that. I'm sorry, this is impossible. And what that makes me think that this one actually designed for the younger audience, so for actually middle graders, but at the center point, or young adults, really young adults, and at a certain point they decided to make it, to age up the characters, to make it more palatable to actual romantasy readers. There are usually new adults romantasy, or actually adult people, and this shift didn't quite work. So we now have a story which is really juvenile and really easy, really surface level, when protagonists swear a lot and they do a lot of innuendos about sexual stuff. So I don't understand. Okay, and maybe it's just because I'm not a target audience, but you cannot tell me that a 20 years old woman actually speaks like that. And I cannot believe that an immortal warrior, 100 and 300 years old, speaks like that. That's impossible. I'm sorry, that doesn't work. And the world building is pretty shaky too. I don't know. I think I'll get to this 50% of the book, and then I'll decide, because it is actually pretty easy to read. I'm a slow reader, but I burn 200 pages in a couple of sittings. So there's something is going on. Something is being executed well on the pacing and the writing style. This is really easy to read and really approachable. But given the fact that everybody was telling me that this was special as a romantic book, and I don't have many resources to see if all romantic books are like this one. So if like, is this what I have to expect from romantic books in general? I don't know. I have to tell you that even if I decided to do not continue the series of Blood and Ash by Jennifer Armentrout, the protagonist there was younger. She was 19 years old, but she was far more mature, and the dialogues were much more compelling on what we have here. So yeah, I'm kind of lost. I'll let you know what's going on with that one too. Reviews. I have just finished A Dragon of the Veil by Nick Snape. This is an epic fantasy, dark fantasy story with multiple POVs about a character that I think is the stronger part of the story. We have this character called Locke. I don't know. Let's call him the protagonist, okay? And that has a really traumatizing past, and it is really compelling. It's one of those really capable but also really grumpy kind of characters that you're supposed to kind of enjoy the more you read about it, because the beginning, the first impact is that, good God, how am I going to handle this one? How am I supposed to empathize with such a grating characters? But then you actually see pretty fast that his situation, it is really difficult because something really bad happened. There's an accumulation of bad situation that brought him to have a really incredibly negative lifestyle. But at the same time, you see that he has pretty strong motivations, pretty strong attachment to the other characters, to the main core characters. You have him, and you have a female elf that it is a comrade in arms. And the central premise is about an invasion. There's multiple plan of existence, kind of parallel universes, and they have to face this invasion, but this really weird, strange invading force, and try to understand the nature of this invasion. So the novel has this, at the beginning he has this really steep learning curve, because the author throws you in the action. And I have to tell you, this is a short novel, but it is really action packed. So once you get inside the groove, when it fires up on all cylinders, it doesn't stop. It grab you by the throat and goes straight to the finish line. So you're thrown into the action. You don't actually understand what's going on. You have to put all the pieces together to try and understand, and then you slowly see the world opening up and understanding the context and the relationship between him and these elven warriors and his superiors, the other people in the army, they are supposed to command him, but it's really difficult to manage as a warrior. And then there are all other points of views that are about the politics of this world and the way they manage this conflict, and also the point of views of the villains, which is really interesting, and it's done in a really original way. I'll say that the novel by itself is really accomplished with a nice pacing, a very good plot, and a good characterization of the characters. And if it is a little bit hard, it is a little bit confusing at the beginning, it really stands on its own feet the more you read it. And it's also pretty unique because it is a blend of science fiction and fantasy. So the aesthetics are medieval fantasy, but you also have specific villains and weapons that are not fantasy at all. But the way they're told, they have this kind of dreamlike quality, this oniric writing style that changes a bit when we have those point of view from the villains, that makes it pretty... Yeah, I don't think I have ever read anything like this. The one thing I will say is that, given that I'm such a character-driven reader, I would have loved to have more moments to catch up a little bit of breath and reflecting a little bit more about what's going on, to try and internalize the scope of the story, the stakes, and develop more the relationships. And it's not like we don't have that, because we definitely have that. The author knows when we need to delve a little bit more about in the consequences of the action, on what's going on. And when we have losses, when we have important characters going out in gruesome ways, it's not glossed over. You feel the impact of the consequences of that, and the characters feel that. So as readers, we have that. So as I told you, the characters, they work. But this is a short book, and Nick Snape generally, he writes short books, so this is his things. He makes a conscious effort to give you short and impactful stories. I think this is around 350 pages. But I would love to have more, because the world building is so strange and so unique. The nature of this of the villains and of the conflict itself is so big that and so different that there was material there to go deeper and to make it broader in scope. But it is also the first installment in a series, so I'm pretty sure we'll have more of that in subsequent installations of the series. I think that, I'm sure that book 2 is out already, and book 3 should be out pretty soon. So yeah, this was really enjoyable, 5-star. It took me a bit to get invested in the story and to actually understand the characters. But once you do that, you really enjoy the story. This is also a really dark and really sad story, so I think you have to be in the right mindset to enjoy it properly. But you should absolutely give it a try. This is the first book that I read from author Nick Snape. I have also his entire science fiction series on my shelves too, so I'll read them too. And I'll let you know what I think about those. And if you have read anything by Nick Snape, let me know. And I also finished Sleeping Words Have No Memory by Yaroslav Barshukov. This is a fantasy story that it is really difficult to box in a subgenre, because it has elements of science fiction, I think, too, but also of eldritch spookiness, let's say. It is really complex, even if it is pretty short of a story, this one too. And also, little trivia, this was an award-winning story, a novella, that was expanded in a full novel here too. And you can kind of see that if you're an author, especially. I think you can see where the structure of the story was expanded on its original bones, but it is really well done. It was enjoyable, and I will say that the central premise is about this figure that is both a politician but also involved in the army, that it is punished for something that he did, a really noble act that the government doesn't see exactly as a noble act, and he's punished to oversee the completion of the building of a huge tower. That it is that huge that it pierces the clouds. It is so massive that could encompass and more than one city inside. The story gives you this. The novel does an amazing job. The author does an amazing job giving you, with a few sentences, the scope and the towering proportions, excuse me my use of words here, of this building, of this tower, and how incredibly intimidating it is. And he does an amazing job describing all the politics around it. Why do we have to build that kind of tower? What it represents, what they're trying to achieve building that, and how difficult it makes the political struggle between that nation and the bordering nations to have that kind of construction near the border, and how all of those motivations, they become even more complex and even more messy because of that. There's also a nice exploration of the protagonist that has we have, I wouldn't say two concurring timelines, but you see much of what it happens in his past, and why he's such a troubled and complex character, and why he got to make that pivotal decision that we have hinted at the beginning of the book, that made him worthy of this kind of punishment in the story. And we have other characters too that are pretty well developed and compelling too. I will say that the premise of the story is nicely done at the end of the book. There's a nice escalation of the rhythm that becomes much more frantic at the end, and much more exciting before the conclusion. That it is a conclusion that it's more centered around the themes than the actual development of the plot, if that makes sense. But I think there was enough material there to make the story broader. You know that I like long books, and I enjoyed this one for what it is, for what it achieved. The writing style is beautiful. It is really refined and really unique and really elegant without sounding purpley or flowery too much. But I would have loved to have more about of an exploration about the world building surrounding the tower and of the tower itself. And there is exploration, there is description, but this is not the kind of story that dwells too much on the aesthetics of it, on the description of the minutia of that. I think it was intentional, and I can understand why this is an award-winning story. But for the kind of reader that I am, I would like to have more of that. Give me time to bask in this incredible universe and to enjoy this incredible building. Tell me more about the inception of the story, about the inception of this construction and what it meant for the place. These are my desires, okay? Because as I told you, the story is pretty accomplished in and of itself the way it is, but I would have loved to have even more. And I think this is a huge compliment to the author, to know that readers would have loved to stay more inside that universe and to have more of that story. So yeah, go give it a try, absolutely. This is pretty unique. And if you want to read something that it is really well crafted on a writing style, sentence by sentence, paragraph by paragraph, there's a lot of learn here. So absolutely go check it out. A few writing updates. I am at 100% of the final draft of the second volume in my series, The Memories of Kenjer. So the sequel to The Crimson Fire is already written. And then I will have to start off the tedious stuff. So revisions. I cannot give you a release date because my novel isn't still out. It will be released April 29. I will decide later. Even if I have the book complete in a really a reasonable amount of time, or if I reach to complete it in a couple of months, I will not release it in a couple of months because I'm testing the waters to see how it works, how the first book will be received, how it goes sales wise, how the reviews will be. I have a bunch of reviews. I think I hit 10 reviews on Goodreads a couple of days ago. They're all amazing. I'm really grateful to all the ARC readers for the amazing job they did. So early feedback is really strong for this book, but I will have to see how it is, how it goes when it hits the broader market. And you know, trying to decide the pacing of the release of a series is one of the most challenging part of publishing in general, but for indie authors especially, because you want to give the book the space to breathe, and at the same time you don't want to space them out, the various releases, too much, so that people forget that you exist and forget about the story. So it's a tricky relationship. It's a tricky balancing act. So we'll see if it goes. This was just to tell you that if you enjoyed the first books, if you're among the ARC readers, rest assured book 2 exists. And actually, the third book is all planned out. The outline is ready. The outline is being revised many times, so it's pretty definitive. It's locked in stone. And I have a good percentage of the writing of the third book already done, but I will give you an exact percentage later in the year. So thank you very much for supporting me in this incredible journey. If you haven't read The Crimson Fire yet, and if you want to read it before the release date of April 29, you can read it right now. I will keep the applications for the advanced reader copies open for a little bit more, but I will close them up pretty soon. So if you want to read the novel right now, you have to do it right now. You have to hurry and to fill up the form that you have down there in the description box. I think that's everything. Thank you for being here until the end of this really long video, and remember that if you enjoy science fiction and fantasy books, this is the perfect place for you. But if you want to see more videos like this, please consider subscribing, leave a like, share this video. But you can have more, you can see more videos, very good, like this one, right here, right now. Thank you again, I'll see you soon.